I still remember the night when I finally conquered the pantheon of Hallownest for the first time. It was a summer night, the last summer before I left for uni, and I was in my room, staring at the same statue and fighting the same battles I fought for the last 3 weeks of holiday. And then it happened. I had a good run against Markov, I defeated NKG, defeated Pure Vessel, and the light at the top screamed, leading to a final battle. I think my heart rate raised to about 200 when I swing my nail the last final time. And anyone who completed this achievement probably holds such a memory. That experience and others like it are why I awaited Silksong so eagerly. Team Cherry created an experience that connected with so many people, to a level I don't think I've ever felt previously. And what a wait it was, filled with memes, lore questions and, well, challenges that defeat anything a normal person should be able to accomplish. But on the 21st of August, like a flash, the real wait began. And on September 4th, not even 2 weeks later, the most wishlisted game on Steam released. But with palpable levels of excitement engulfing the online world, there was a certain level of unease mixed into it. Could it really deliver? After 8 years, will it be everything we wanted it to? Growing from what was in the beginning just the Hornet DLC and becoming one of the most expected games ever, the question bears asking, what even is Hollow Knight Silksong anymore? Hello travelers, my name is Arvan and today we will explore that question. Going through the history, the community and through the minds of its creators, we will explore everything this game represents. Let me tell you a story. To speak of Silksong, we first need to speak of its creators. And I knew that, to make these sections justice, to fully understand the story I'm looking at, I will need to do extensive research. Because, while I was familiar with the contents of Hollow Knight, I knew little about the creation of the games. So, I proceeded to open the website of Team Cherry, hit the older posts button as far as it will take me, and started reading. And I read all the blogs available, together with watching multiple interviews, as well as Reddit AMAs and other forms of communication Team Cherry held over the years. And man, reading this was such a nostalgia trip. Looking up this old livestream done in 2018 that celebrated Void Heart Edition coming to PS4 and Xbox, I got reminded there was a time in my life when the biggest headline I could think of was Ninja joining Mixer. I want those times to come back. But there was more to gain besides nostalgia, as all the things I looked over really helped me punctuate my feelings on many subjects, and the information from them will come back again and again as we move through the story. For now, let's start asking questions. How did Team Cherry start? Well, it all started when two friends, Ari Gibson and William Palin, joined a game jam. Lundum Dare is a recurring competition that asks game development teams to create a game under a very limited time frame of 48 to 72 hours. The theme of the game is announced at the beginning of the event to ensure everyone starts creating at the same time, and from there, the pressure is on. Back in the ancient times of 2013, Gibson asked Palin to join him in the 27th edition of this competition, where the theme was 10 seconds. And the result was Hungry Knight. It is not Hollow Knight, we are not there yet, but do you see something familiar? In interviews, the two friends said that the main character of Hollow Knight was initially still named Hungry Knight, until they realized that, well, he isn't hungry anymore. From their first successful endeavor as a team, they joined the 29th edition of the competition, this time with the team beneath the surface. They missed the deadline, but not due to laziness like me when I miss my morning classes, but because the thing they started to create needed more than 72 hours. And what we observed so far tells us something important about how Team Cherry operates. These are people who tend to go with the flow, guided by a desire to create, and not a studio controlled by quarterly meetings and lines that have to go up. In an interview after the launch of Hollow Knight, they said that the initial form of the game only had 2 hours of playtime, and it was only due to the success of their Kickstarter that the game's scope expanded so massively. Mind you, that success was just $40,000, and for reference, the last reported production cost for a Call of Duty game in 2020 was $700 million. And when Team Cherry was asked why they priced a game with as much content as Hollow Knight at just $15, Ari said all gamers deserve to play their games. You can only love them. They were also very active on their blogs, with updates to the community about how the development was going. That is why my research strategy worked. They were making tours of the areas they were working on, sharing game dev insights, and after the game released, sharing fan art and being involved in things like speedrunning. That was until the send-off they had for the holidays of 2019, when the project they were working on was still the Hornet DLC, now named Hollow Knight Silksong. And after that, they just vanished. It is understandable for the community to create the movement that it did. So, once the constant stream of updates became nothing, with the last post before the Silksong release being the 2019 post, the community just started to morph. First, they memed the entire situation to death, of course. But then, they took a page out of the book of Thanos himself and decided to do it themselves. They were already speedrunning the game before, but that shrank to insanely low numbers. Less than 3 hours for 112%? It took me almost 100! Then came the randomizers, and then the mods. Mods that evolved into more and more cursed versions of themselves as time went by, with insanity runs like Primal Aspid, Inferno King Grim, Nightmare and Void, and of course the Pale Court, which is just a fan-made DLC, with actual DLC quality. If you want to see how far the rabbit hole goes, go watch Fireborn's excellent video over Any Radiance, a boss fight literally designed to be unbeatable until someone did. But all of that changed this year. Xbox announced the game will come out, but they said that before, so who believes them really? However, the teases kept coming. Jeff Keighley was on the bandwagon giving hints, and ultimately the release trailer dropped, with a date set. If you wonder what happened with Team Cherry in that 6-year gap, they were stuck in development heaven. Apparently they had so much fun creating the game that they really just didn't feel like releasing it. And with the coffers of money Hollow Knight made them, they were in no rush. And now it is time to shift gears to the present. Because Silksong, just like the original Hollow Knight, is amazing. Topped the Steam charts, becoming the 18th most played game of all time on Steam, received 9s and 10s across the board, and while it had its online discourses, especially surrounding difficulty, I don't think anyone would call this anything but a resounding success. So, how does Hollow Knight manage to create its magic? And I mean both games here. Both are named Hollow Knight, so I'll speak about both of them from now on. It is kinda confusing, but you get the point. And the answer has multiple pieces, which we will explore, starting with since Silksong released, one particular meme started going around. Hornet just doing this. And also there is this variation which I absolutely love. But in this hilarious and ultimately quite silly trick lies one of the core principles of Hollow Knight design. As we will explore, the games have a very centric gameplay first philosophy, with all the elements added meant to serve the gameplay experience to the player. Which might sound obvious since this is a video game, but you'd be surprised. So in this context, what is Hornet? Sure, she is the hero of Fireloom, for the most part. She is also the princess of Hallownest, she is one of the last weavers, and she is many more things. But for the player, Hornet is something different. Just like the knight before her, Hornet is our avatar, the means through which we experience this world. She is our sight, our touch and our hearing, that which allows us to experience the world of Fireloom. Okay, that sounded weird, but what I mean to say is that above all else, she represents our anchor to that world. And Team Cherry knows this. In interview after interview, Team Cherry speaks about making the movement snappy, about making the player feel in control, to the point where even a silly dance could feel so unique and interesting. If you look at all builds of the original, and I mean really old, before the game was even taken to Unity, the environments are ugly and everything looks untextured. But the one thing that stays consistent is the movement of the avatar. Even in Hungry Knight, the movement is good. Always responsive, always giving the player control.
Yeah, that's something we decided on really, really early on, that the character would have that kind of inertialess, like you've got really fine control over the way he moves. So even in the air, as soon as you let go of the stick or the direction, you sort of stop dead in midair, like in Mega Man.
And I remember so vividly how this was the most striking thing about opening Silksong for the first time. The moment Hornet stands up after escaping her cage, the feeling you receive is just natural, and Silksong took the concept of immersing the player through movement further with the implementation of the crests. Because the movement in the original was immersive, but it also felt limited by its simplicity. By contrast, the crests have been a subject I farmed many views on, specifically because they are complex. But importantly, while we all have our favorites, no crest feels bad to use. Not even Beast, hard as it is for me to admit it. All of them managed to forge their own identity while maintaining that core of keeping the movement fluid. And that is important because the world of Hollow Knight is not a friendly one. In an interview with Tosh Station, Willem spoke about the difficulty of his games, and he said something that underlines a lot of the philosophy that goes into sad games. To quote, "We don't want it specifically to be hard, we want it to be engaging, so I guess part of that is making sure that you can't just autopilot through, you actually have to pay attention to what you're doing." A lot of people complain about Silksong being difficult, and it is. I tried turning my brain off and just move around track 3, and my god did that go wrong. Not to mention that my first viral short was about complaining how the pogos in Hunter's March were hard with Hunter's Crest. But that is the point. They said that Silksong is harder because Hornet is more skillful than the Knight. And through that they mean that the game aims to give the player a certain fantasy of Hornet the Hunter. And that is achieved not by making the player's avatar unkillable, but by making the player himself become that hunter through trial and error. And you must also remember why they chose this fantasy. Silksong is made following Hollow Knight, and it is made to follow its legacy. And for all the pressure that could have meant, it brought some benefits, because time and again in their blog for the original game's development, Ari and Willem speak how they couldn't make Hollow Knight as hard as they wanted, because the game brought new people to the Metroidvania genre, and those people lacked the experience of the old games in the space, so they had to adjust. But a lot of the people coming into Silksong did play the original Hollow Knight. I made a joke in a short a few weeks ago about how the bench in Sinner's Road has a boss walk as punishment from the devs because we modded any radiance in the game and then defeated it. But I think now that might actually be closer to the truth, if clearly phrased for YouTube views. Because Team Cherry did treat Silksong like a continuation of the original Hollow Knight, and they saw where the community went in their absence. They gave an entire generation of gamers access to this genre through the original, and Silksong is not meant to repeat that, it is meant to be a payoff. Over and over in their blog posts, Team Cherry thanks their Kickstart backers, they repost fan art, they show appreciation to this community. This game is a culmination of that appreciation. And while my next point might sound gatekeeping, I genuinely mean it for the enjoyment of those I'm addressing it. I think people shouldn't play Silksong without playing Hollow Knight first, because playing Silksong that way is missing half the journey this community went through and half the journey Team Cherry created. And that is sad. This journey starts at the jump into Hull Nest, when you are a no-name vessel, literal failed experiment, and continues to the point where you become the end of the world, only to then get the second game that sees you become the hero that stops that evil from consuming another. Silksong is a game about coming into a strange realm and conquering it, about Hornet adapting to this new situation, and about us adapting to this new level of difficulty. And that difficulty offers both the moment-to-moment immersion and the connection with what this community has become. Despite it being Hollow Knight Silksong, this is also the Hornet DLC, promised to the community years ago as a Kickstarter reward. I strongly considered naming this section "Why Bugs?" Because really, why? I really like talking about these games in regular conversation. I think they can exemplify well a lot of narrative themes, such as the nature of unshackled ambition, the dream of eternity, and the decay that comes after such dreams fail. Pale King, you absolute scumbag! But it is hard to speak about it when the game is about bugs, because people don't really like bugs. And if you disagree, please go and sleep one night in a student dorm in the Balkans. You will change your mind. So why then use bugs? Why make them all so cute and build not one but two kingdoms around them? And someone actually asked him Che this, with the answer being honestly quite enlightening.
It may have come about as a result of us working in, because our history was game jams, our sort of had to develop characters and designs that could be produced very quickly. So we could, you could build up enemies and you could build up spaces efficiently across, say, 72 hours or 48 hours. And surprisingly enough, bugs are the types of creatures that are easily sort of created in that time. So that's
And I love this answer because it highlights very well why the Hollow Knight games are what they are. Because what started as a survival tactics in a game jam later became the cornerstone for some very important design principles. The mission to create large-scale worlds despite the small size of the team, and then introducing these worlds multiple bits that are not easily connectable, giving the image of a bigger world still. and through that size introduce mystery to the world. When you first get to a new area in Hollow Knight, everything feels endless. The yet undefined borders of the area you just stumbled upon, the appearance of new enemy after new enemy, the possibility of so many paths you can venture to. And of course, there are the bugs that populate these worlds. Be it the friendly residents of Belheart, or the hunters in the far fields, or the prideful mantis warriors, or the spiders in Deep Nest. All the bugs have a place in this world, because Team Cherry's choices when creating this world allowed them to. The choice of them being bugs, the choice of making the game in 2D, the choice to work with simple surfaces, and many more small choices allow Team Cherry to overflow this world with many creatures that are uniquely designed, engaging, and memorable. In how many games can you name, off the top of your head, as many friendly NPCs? I can tell very few, especially when they are bugs. When I try to tie this all back together, what comes to mind is an early interview Willem had with IGN, and I want you to focus on his attitude as you listen to his response to the question, what makes Hollow Knight stand out?
Well, Ari's done like a great job on the art as well. Like, I mean, we get a lot of people saying that they really like the look of it, and that's what draws people over. And then luckily the game is good as well, so when they play it, they have fun.
You can see how not even the creators can single out what is the thing giving the games the magic that they have. And looking at my script so far, I can see why. We spoke about many aspects, but they are, despite my best attempt to make them flow together, still disjointed to a degree. We can talk about passion and atmosphere and good gameplay, but none of them are specifically the reason. But all of them add up to it, to create something more, something that rises above what each quality could mean individually. And I suppose that's where the question finally gets its answer. What is Hollow Knight Silksong? After all the research that became this long video, this is the best answer I can leave you with. Silksong, above everything else, is the story of a triumph. Triumph of a community who received everything they wanted and more. Triumph in game design. For even when its worst aspects twist and turn to make you want to break apart your controller, you will still come back, because it connected with you on a level not even the frustration can reach. That then allows each one of us to have our own personal triumphant stories of defeating the challenge and becoming more through it. But most of all, it's the triumph of passion. Because the gaming industry of today has become something very twisted. Video games, according to my research, now own the first spot among all entertainment sectors, trumping with over $50 billion, the runner-up. And this growth in many ways is a disease before being a positive. It's actually very comparable to cancer, an error in the code of a system that makes something grow uncontrollably until it loses all semblance of its previous self, only to eventually kill the thing it started from by suffocating it. And when we look at cases like Concord, a game that lost $400 million in 1 week, doesn't it feel the same? Even if we assume the main reason that game failed was because the game was bad, if the loss was 100 times lower, would it be the same story? And at what point did the devs just need to spend the money because the investors wanted more game, despite having nothing more to add that would make the game better? At what point this kind of choices just add bloat and suffocate the good games underneath? And in a world of such occurrences, Team Cherry is a beacon. A team of 3 people starting from a Kickstarter that gained less than $40,000, who delivered the game they promised, gained trust with customers, then skyrocketed to create the most wishlisted game on Steam, only to fulfill all the expectation that title carried all over again. That, in my opinion, is the story of a triumph, and what Hollow Knight Silksong is despite every flaw it has. Thanks for watching, and subscribe for more such stories. Peace.